Hi, this is Dan Aykroyd. He's progressive. He's beautiful. He's thoughtful. He's intelligent. He's powerful. He's positive. He is Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5 Satellite Radio.
Hi guys, I'm Sam Fricker. I'm an Australian Olympic diver and you're listening to Power 98.5.
Empowering listeners from the US to the UK. Live on air with Stephen Cuoco.
You know what? I haven't done a late night interview in a very, very long time. But this music is feeling so good right now, and I'm loving it. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. You are listening to Live on Air with Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5 Satellite Radio, power985.com. Whether you're listening to us on the app, Amazon Music, any of your favorite podcast platforms. If you happen to not be listening to the live right now, where am I going with this? It's different, and I'm got my cardigan on, and I had a nice cup of decaf coffee, and all I need is like a nice burning fireplace right now. Like, why do we not have that set up? I mean, we need that. We need that immediately. But you know what? About time we get something like that. Winter's going to be over. Just got done shoveling snow again, but I'm not going to complain because what they're getting in South Jersey and in Pennsylvania, near a foot of snow, no thanks. I think we only got about an inch last night. However, we got hit with a major ice storm. 2 days ago? 3 days ago? Something like that. Either way, I am enjoying the winter. We have very excited about this. As you guys know, I am a juror for Tribeca Film Festival. I am getting front row seating to view some of the most incredible projects I have watched. And I'm telling you, these films are just like, they belong on Netflix and Apple TV and Hulu. Like the quality is just outstanding, absolutely outstanding. Which brings me to director Daniel Solé. He is not only a marvelous human being, but he is an editor, screenwriter, filmmaker residing in Brooklyn, New York. His mockumentary shorts, Brooklyn for Real, received Vimeo's coveted Staff Pick Award and made their staff favorites of 2015. He wrote 2 short films that premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. You can go and get Good Light, the first of which earned him the Best Writer Award at the NBC Universal Shorts Festival. He currently works as a freelance video editor, developing feature screenplays in his spare time. The short film I had the pleasure of watching is Say As I Say. It's remarkable. It's classy. It's finesse. It's flawless. It is just what filmmaking is all about. And we've got it right here. I'm going to give you a little bit of a snippet of it, an overview. So Say As I Say, here's what it's about. During Shabbat service at Synagogue Beth Shalom, Raquel and her daughter, Eva, sort through donations for the winter food drive. When Raquel answers the phone and finds herself on the receiving end of a bomb threat, she bucks all protocol and makes a striking decision. This has got high reviews already. I gave it a high review. This should most likely be seen and most likely be showcasing, yes, at Bravemaker Film Festival this year. I should have had the information up. Keep in mind, it's been a long time. I'm doing my interview this evening. So we have all the latest and greatest about Daniel, but I do not have the specifications about the Bravemaker Film Festival. Maybe Daniel has it, but I believe it's in June. Let me see. Can we go? Is it going to give it to me? I'm going to find out. It's June sometime. But listen, you can go ahead and go to Bravemaker Film Festival Instagram, and it's going to be all there. And you know what? Here's what I'm going to do, because I'm not lazy. I'm going to go ahead and go on Instagram, and I'm going to pull up Bravemaker Film Festival. I've been working on enunciating. I've been catching that sometimes when I speak. I don't know if it's because I got a Jersey accent or what, but I just want to make sure I impress all film producers and my fellow people who are in media and everything else, because I want to do more red carpets. I want to do premieres. I want to go ahead and do what Ryan Seacrest does and be that fabulous media personality and host and everything else. So I am keeping it in check in making sure that I am enunciating my words always. I'm also supposed to be, which I am, in a film called And Then You Die, supposed to start filming in Atlanta March of this year. However, I highly doubt it's going to happen in March. I haven't heard anything from the director that it is happening in March, because it's 28 days of filming. I know my part as Congressman Walker, we are supposed to be filming, I believe, like 6 days, maybe more. I have no idea. But I'm having fun in making sure that I am enunciating everything perfectly. Because trust me, people pay attention to it big time. I know I do when I'm not listening to myself and listening to others. Bravemaker is happening July 10th to the 13th of this year, 2025. Once again, July 10th to the 13th, Bravemaker Film Festival. And do we have a link? You can Google bravemaker.com. I know they got a link tree, but check it out. I want to hurry up and get to Daniel, and I'm not rushing him, but I'm looking forward to taking these clothes off, going in a shower, because I take 2 showers a day. And no, that's not too much information. I have to have a shower at night, especially before bed. But I'm going to see if there is something good on TV. And about time I probably am going to watch something on TV or Paramount Plus. I'm going to be ready for bed and turn it off and say nighty-night. And that's okay, because I'll be back up at 7 a.m. tomorrow doing what I love to do most. Daniel, welcome to Live on Air with Stephen Cuoco, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Your films, I'm going to pull it up right now. You've got more than Say As I Say. You've got Crowd Control, You Can Go, which was in 2016, Gets Good Light, which was in 2020. But this year's short drama, you're the director, editor, writer. It's perfect. There's a brilliance to it. I can tell, for what it's worth, you are most definitely someone that is visual. You know how to pay attention, very close attention to detail. I highly doubt you miss anything. Am I getting that correct?
First of all, thank you so much for the high praise. It means a lot. Yeah, I would say this short was sort of like, I directed some things before. This was my first time making something that with like a full crew and a little bit of money, as opposed to kind of like the run and gun stuff that I was doing before, which is also very fun and a great starting point. But this was sort of a test run to see, like, can I manage a crew? What will it be like to work with a real, experienced director of photography? producers and a super talented small cast. And so, yeah, it was fun to step into this role for the first time. Editing, I've had a little more experience with, but the directing felt pretty new to me, at least on the level that we were operating at. So yeah,
I would have never assumed that you were not seasoned, and I mean at least 10 to 12 years as a director.
Oh yeah, definitely not. But I appreciate that. And what I will say is also, we had quite a bit more lead time than you would think on a normal short, for various reasons of just like when we were able to get it off the ground. And so I took advantage of that. Like we had, from the time I really finished the script and got the first producers on board to the time, I think that was like, I want to say around September of 23, maybe even a little earlier, actually, maybe even summer of 23. And then we didn't shoot until the very end of April 24. And so you can imagine, for like a 12-minute short, that's quite a lot of time to like sit and marinate on how you're going to go about doing things. And it meant that I could storyboard, I could do an animatic, we could really take our time finding the perfect location, which I think we did, and put together a super talented duo for the two roles, get a great cinematographer and other crew on board. So it was, I do feel like we took advantage of that time, and had I had a few weeks to prep, or even a couple months, I don't know that it would have turned out the same. So that time was definitely on our side in that respect. And in terms of, and I'm not just being modest here, but I think that being upfront about my inexperience with some of my crew, not in a way that was like, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing, but sort of more like, look, I want people, I want my cinematographer to know that I don't have a super technical vocabulary when it comes to lenses and cameras and lighting and all that. But what I can do is communicate with him about the story. The story I know, inside and out. I know what the characters are thinking at any given moment. I have ideas about framing, of course, and blocking and all this stuff. But I'm going to need to lean on you, and have you fill some of the gaps. And then the same goes for like production design and art directing and all that stuff, So yeah, I think that I was able, I think that rather than sort of hiding some of my greenness, being upfront, but not totally with a lack of confidence, saying like, hey, I'm gonna need a hand here, and if I didn't know something or a term or whatever, I have to say like, you're gonna have to tell me what that means, because I don't, I don't know. And I think that worked out nicely, and I think people trust you more when you're not covering up for lack of knowledge or lack of experience.
Do you see yourself, Daniel, doing projects that are lengthier than 12 minutes?
Yes. So actually, I'll tell you, the seed of this project came from the ambition to do a feature. So I actually wrote a feature script before this short that was also very contained. It's a similar thing in the sense of like, it's a single location at a synagogue. Both of these characters are in it, but it's the larger family. And the way I would put it is, it's not so much like it's not that it's this particular story with the bomb threat and all that, you know, stretched out to 90 minutes. It's more like a different scenario that's taking place the following day at the same synagogue. So let's say, so this is on a Saturday morning. The feature, I imagine, taking place on a Sunday. It's a different story with more characters, but also, yeah, just entirely contained at this one synagogue. And I wrote it with the intention, sort of, you know, working backwards from, if I'm ever going to get to direct a first feature, it's going to have to be super, super low budget. You know, because I haven't done anything yet, part of the pitch for the feature is like, you know, this can be done for very little money. But what I realized fairly quickly too is, you know, even that little money for a feature, let's say it's 300,000 or 500,000, that's still not that little money, right? Like you still, that's not an easy amount of money to raise. And so having, you know, some filmmaker friends kind of talk some sense to me and basically say, look, you can do that at some point, but you probably need a proof of you're still going to have to make a short film to, you know, precede this. And what I didn't want to do was try and condense that, you know, 90 to 100-minute story into 10 minutes. Sometimes you see that, right? Like you see a short that you can almost tell functions as a proof of concept for a feature. And I wanted something that could do both, that could stand on its own 2 feet and also, you know, show that I can direct, and that if people were interested, I could say, well, you know, if you like these 2 characters, I'd love to introduce you to the whole family, basically, and show you this other story that's like a little more involved. And so, yeah, so I had this feature written for maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 years before I finally sat down and said, okay, what's an idea for a short that takes place with 2 characters? And it kind of was entertaining different scenarios. You know, I just sort of eventually landed on the mother and daughter, but, you know, it could have just as easily been like the grandfather and the grandson, or the father and the daughter, you know. And I was sort of trying to figure out like, what could I do here? And I landed on this idea with the mother and the daughter and this bomb threat that happens while they're sorting through the donations for the food drive. And now that this project is in, you know, eventually I'd love to try and see if there's a way to make the feature script.
For those that are listening, we've got writer, director, film writer, director, to be more specific, Daniel Solé with us today, who hails out of Brooklyn, New York. I had the pleasure of watching his short film, Say As I Say. It's a short drama, due to being a juror on Bravemaker Film Festival. Astonishing, fabulous. What's even more remarkable, Daniel, is it stars 2023 Tony Award winner Miriam Silverman, and then newcomer Maisie Cost, if I'm saying her name correctly.
Yep.
Did you
That's
have
right.
your hand in casting Miriam and Maisie?
Yes, you know, especially because it was such a small cast. I will say one of my producers, Marlena, who is just amazing. I had like a trio of great creative producers on this project, and Marlena has a background in casting, so she was very, you know, very involved in basically putting the word out for the role of the daughter. And we knew that we were trying to get someone who maybe was a little more experienced or known for the role of the mother. And of course she was involved in both, all of the elements of casting, but the casting the daughter was the challenge, because we just didn't know where we were going to find her, you know? And so I can tell you a little bit, maybe, yeah, I'll say, like, you know, with Maisie, yeah, it was just sort of, you know, what you might imagine. It was a lot of like self tapes that were sent in, And then once Marlena kind of whittled down the pool, we got it down to maybe about 3 or 4 people that we felt were pretty strong. And then there was just this like very quick consensus that formed around Maisie between myself, Marlena, and Adam and Michael, the other producers. And we all just felt like she would knock it out of the park. And we were looking for someone who could kind of just do a lot without the dialogue too, because obviously it's a dialogue driven piece. It's just 2 people talking to each other, right? Like and yet I wanted a lot of the performance to shine through in these kind of like quiet moments between the talking. You know what I mean? So, that's a certain subtlety and nuance that not everybody can do. And Maisie was great at that. And she also nailed this kind of like teenage attitude, that we didn't want someone who looks like, we wanted something that felt real. Like, she doesn't hate her mom. She has a great relationship with her mother, but she can get a little exasperated with her and a little bit irked, but there's a deep connection between them, And then with Miriam, I mean, we just lucked out. I don't even know what to say there. She's obviously an incredibly talented actor. She's done a lot of stage work, also quite a bit of work on screen as well. Someone I know recommended her, and I just I reached out as a shot in the dark. I emailed her and I think she had read the script, this mutual connection we had already sent her the script. So I knew at least there was enough interest on her end that she was willing to sit down with me. And so, yeah, we met up for coffee, and I was just so psyched that she was down to do the role. And I felt like it was a big get on our end to have her on the project. She's so good at what she does.
They're perfect together. I enjoyed both actresses extremely much, Miriam Silverman and Maisie Cost. Wow. And I hope you take this as a compliment, Daniel. I assume you've heard of the film with Timothée Chalamet, Call Me By Your First Name, or Call Me By Your Name.
Oh, yeah, Call Me By Your Name.
Call Me By Your Name.
Yeah.
At the end of your film, Say As I Say, there was this profound peace, this calmness, this introspection, much associated with this quiet contemplation, the same way as Call Me By Your Name, if you remember, when Timothée Chalamet was sitting in front of the fireplace and all you heard was the crackling and him crying and being emotional. That's what the ending of this film reminded me, and I don't want to give too much away. It was just the way the scene was. It brought me right back to that fireplace moment with Timothée Chalamet. Wow. It did.
I don't even know what to say to that. I will say it's a huge compliment, of course, and it's also so coincidental because right before you called, I was actually watching. Chalamet just did, I guess, a sit down with Josh Brolin for the Santa Barbara Film Festival. And Josh Brolin, I was just watching Josh Brolin ask him about that particular moment by the fire. So it's so hilarious that I was just watching that and you're bringing it up. And of course, it's like a very, very memorable, I don't even know if it's right to call it a scene. I guess it's a scene, but it's like it's something poetic beyond that. But yeah, no, that's, you are the first person to tell me that, and I will gladly take it.
I hope you remember that always. And when you turn, or when Say As I Say becomes a full feature, please have the ending be just as captivating as you did in this short, where I feel like I'm having a Timothée Chalamet fireplace, heart moment of tears. I mean, it's just, it's stunning the way this film ended. I want to say it so bad, but I'm not going to. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm thinking of is what was sitting on the table. It was just something about that scene. Instead of it being a fireplace, it was just that moment of what I saw with the cups.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You're talking about the credits when they're sort of where you see the credits come on. And I will say it's interesting. I knew that I wanted to kind of bookend the short with these two connected images, and we landed on this. I'll say that the opening, and it's fine if you may not have registered it, but like the very first shot you see is of a kiddish cup that's upside down on a drying rack, and so it's meant to sort of we come back to this idea at the end. And yeah, it was something actually that we shot we had to do a pickup day. We had a version of that image that just wasn't quite working. It was because of the way I had chosen to frame it. We had a 2-day shoot, and we needed, one of my executive producers, Jeremiah, Zagar, who's a great director in his own right. He's sort of, he and his producing partner Jeremy sort of like mentored me through this project, and Jeremiah sort of suggested that I go back after seeing a rough cut, and he's like, it looks like there were only 2 people in this synagogue that day when you shot, because there were, and we had sort of shot around it, like, so that we didn't need to show, and I thought I could sort of cheat it enough with the sound of the congregation underneath and all that. And he's like, but I think you would really benefit from going back. You don't even need the actors there. You just need people. And so that last shot was something we grabbed on the pickup shoot, but very much with the intention of it, being placed where it was placed, and that we held the shot long enough for obviously for the credit sequence to take us out of it. So yeah, it was a fun shot to get, because it involved a lot of hands going, entering the frame and picking up cups, and it's really the only moment that you get. I guess there's a couple other shots at the beginning, but it's this sort of prolonged moment where you get a sense of like the community that actually exists outside of this kitchen that morning.
It was such a silent communication of this dance that you witnessed, but in a way that's never been explained before. I'm telling you, your style of directing and your vision is something extremely different, that it so reminds me of the director of, Call Me By Your Name.
Luca Guadagnino. I don't think I can accept that, but
one day you may.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll get there. It's aspirational for sure. He's amazing, of course.
You see yourself in a certain way, and I'm not going to take away from what you just shared, but just know that that's what I see. That's the truth of,
thank you.
Of what
thank
I
you
see.
So much.
You're welcome. Honestly, it's the truth. Thank you for receiving that. Because I don't know. Do you feel that you can be hard on yourself at times? Is there a sense of,
of course,
perfection?
Of course I can. And I think it's actually, you being easy on yourself may not get you that far. So you want to be critical. It's sort of a mixed bag with me. What I'll say is, like, the feedback process is so crucial to the outcome, right? So like, there were, on the flip side of the coin of being hard on myself, there were times where I thought I was done. I was like, I got it. I nailed it. This cut is finished. And then I would show it to a few fresh eyes, and I wasn't getting the response, that I hoped for. And I was still getting kind of notes that were like, I think you might want to consider cutting this and cut this, And so it is really important to kind of open yourself up to that process, and also knowing that you can't accept every bit of critical feedback either, because sometimes you'll get two people saying the opposite thing to you within the space of 24 hours. One person saying, I love this moment. Another person saying, I think you should cut this moment, So you do have to ultimately rely on your own instincts for sure. But sometimes you will not see things that other people see. And so it is, it's important, I think, to kind of not just, not just like look at the finish line and think like, I'm there, it's a process. And, it's probably good. Can't remember exactly, but it was easily a good 3 or 4 months, I would say, of editing before I got to a version where I felt like, and now I'm getting the reaction that I want from the people that I trust, my mom is always going to say it's amazing, but then there's other people that like I show it to who I know they're not going to BS me. I don't know if you're allowed cursing on this show or not, but yeah, so that's important, I think.
How do you know when you just trust yourself enough that you believe it, you believe in yourself?
I think, it's a great question. I think there is an element of, you almost have to distance yourself from yourself. This is going to sound very strange, but it's like, if you can distance yourself, in other words, try to watch it as if you didn't make it, right? Like as if you're sitting down and watching someone else's short. And if you kind of let almost like your personal attachments to it go, which is of course very tough, especially if, this is why also sometimes, people did advise me at first, like, you may not want to edit what you directed. Like, this is why there often is a healthy handoff, right? That happens from directing to editing, because the editor is not going to be as precious and go, oh, but I don't want to get rid of that shot because it took so much work to get it. The editor doesn't care, right? They are just working with the ingredients in front of them, and they don't have an emotional attachment to how much work went into a particular take. But I was, just very sort of like, I tried to be very disciplined about catching when I was doing that. And some of that may have still filtered through a little bit, but like in the end, the idea was, watch it as if someone else wrote and directed it. And at that point, if I got to a place where I say, okay, this is feeling good, then it felt good. And I could trust that, but there's almost an element of forced distancing that you have to do.
I'm going to read something here that you wrote in your cover letter to Bravemaker Film Festival, Tony Capistione and Jessica Musgrave. Say As I Say examines the knotty relationship I have with my own Jewishness. I still recall from my childhood the occasional morning service canceled by a bomb threat called into my community's synagogue. Hypervigilance is a deeply ingrained element of our cultural identity, and for good reason. This story asks a difficult question. What is the cost? Would you like to expand on that, Daniel?
Sure. And one of the things that is actually very funny to me hearing that back out loud is, I just want to clarify for the listener too, my naughty relationship with my own Jewishness is Knotty, which you said it totally right. It just happens to also sound like the word naughty, Naughty.
Okay.
So just to be clear, that I mean Knotty.
Thank you.
So yeah, what I one of the things that I actually has, to be totally transparent, has been like a bit of a uncomfortable zone for me or whatever in this project is I knew that I really, really didn't want to make something that could ever be mistaken as like a PSA against anti-Semitism. There's so much of that out there. And I think, most people that I know, most people probably who attend film festivals, anyone who's going to sit down and watch this short, I have a feeling they already agree with that. That anti-Semitism is not a great thing, right? But what I was much more interested in is not violence or even threats of violence, but how we as a community react to violence or threats of violence. What are the choices that we make when that confronts us? And I'm hoping that that can be something relatable also, not just to a Jewish audience, that there are mosques that receive bomb threats. There are churches that receive bomb threats. There are, community centers, there's so many different communities that have experienced this, right? So the question that I'm sort of, but what I do feel is sort of that I can speak to experientially just from coming from a Jewish background. And by the way, I was not raised religious at all. I was raised in a San Francisco, very like hippie-ish Jewish community, right? Like a lot of parents who were fans of the Grateful Dead and wore tie-dye. Like that's the community that I come from. It's not I didn't actually go to synagogue a lot, but I did go to a Jewish day school growing up, and we went to synagogue once a week on Thursday mornings. And I have this memory of receiving when I was a kid that there were like every once in a while, like we wouldn't do our weekly morning service because someone called in a bomb threat or something. And it always struck me as this like strange dilemma because I don't ever remember feeling scared by them. And this might seem a little strange, that it always seemed almost silly to me that we would treat these threats with respect, right? It's like so obvious someone is trying to scare you, and so you alter your schedule for the day because and sort of are like giving in to what's wanted. Now, that doesn't mean I understand the reason for that, and I don't think I'm trying, with the short, I'm obviously just I'm raising a question that I think I would love to see be asked a little bit more, but it's not, hopefully doesn't come off as too prescriptive either, but it's sort of examining, this mother is doing something in the short that I think will touch a nerve, and that's okay with audiences. And I would love if people sort of like debate her decision afterwards and disagree about it and argue about it. Like that's fine. But yeah, it was just sort of like this idea of, when we, I use the word hypervigilance because I think it really, really is deeply embedded in the Jewish community, and we see it today. And we see, it's like I said in that letter, it's for a reason, but I also think that it does a lot of damage as well. And sometimes as a community, we don't always take stock of what the cost is of that hypervigilance, So yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I appreciate that very much. And how do you feel from what you just said?
You know, I think that I probably, I guess what I can sort of say about it is that I do think Raquel's character is sort of embodying the feeling that I have about this, which is that that I think our community is sometimes too willing to prioritize security above all else. That there's nothing that it's so paramount. And again, I come from a family where my mother's parents are both Holocaust survivors. Like, I was raised with this, with a pretty clear understanding of what my people have gone through. And yet I also think like there are, security is not everything. And that when you place it as like the most important and only important thing, there are other things that are lost in that process. And it's a very tough thing to consider, because of course like you want people to be safe and you want your own people to be safe. I sometimes wonder if overcommitting to security can also have a backfiring effect as well. And that like there's almost like I don't know how quite to put it, but that like by overcommitting to security, you can sometimes make yourself actually more vulnerable and less safe, because you've isolated yourself and you've cut yourself off, and so yeah, I know that's a little ambiguous, but it's a tough one, and I don't think that our community has necessarily, where there's going to be disagreement, especially in this day and age and in this climate, about how far do you take that commitment to safety,
as well as keeping to the connection of your own humanity and dignity.
Right.
Because you are who you are, and anytime someone disconnects themselves, the question is what are they really, what is that person really saying to themselves? I highly doubt it's going to be something kind or loving.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that when all you care about is sort of your physical safety, and you can sort of become a different person, and like you just said, you can lose a little bit of connection to your own humanity. And without getting, I definitely don't want to veer into the politics of what's going on right now, but I think we see some of that, and it's not unique to Jewish people. Of course, this is like any community that has been victimized in its past, and it's a really tough thing to put under a microscope, but I also think it's really important. And so that's what I was, first and foremost, the short is about a mother and daughter, right? It's like about these two characters, but underneath that's kind of the questions that I was wrestling with, and the feature script gets into it even much, much further. And so, yeah, it's a thing that is on my mind quite a lot these days, I would say.
I honestly believe and know for a fact in my heart, Daniel, you're going to highly impress yourself and become even more impressed by your capability as a editor and screenwriter and filmmaker. I'm excited for you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I want to thank you again for your encouragement and your kind words about the project. And I just hope that, you know, it'll eventually go online. Obviously, we're like submitting it to festivals now and seeing where it goes. Hopefully Brave Maker is one of them. And but eventually it'll end up online, and people can go to my website, danielsolé.com. It's just Daniel, SOLE.com. And there will be a page there with some information, you know, about when the short is premiering and all that. Yeah.
I can't wait. And there's no reason why, trust me, even if I have to give a direct call to Tony, who is the owner and president of Brave Maker Film Festival, which is a nonprofit film festival and is happening in the Bay Area, July 10th to the 13th of this year. I told you before, and I'm going to brag about it and remind you always, you have more than one person. You've got multiple people that gave it high remarks.
Awesome.
Strong remarks, and if there's no if, it will be, it has to. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is exciting. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for being with us today or tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who's tuned in to Live on Air with Stephen Cuoco on Power 98.5 satellite radio. I mean, this is what I love most, bringing you someone like Daniel Solé, who is an esteemed editor, screenwriter, and filmmaker based out of New York, and having the honor to watch an extraordinary project starring Miriam Silverman and Maisie Cost in Say As I Say, a short drama by Daniel Solé. Head on over to his website, www.danielsolé.com, DANIELSOLE.com. And remember, Brave Maker Film Festival happens in the Bay Area, July 10th to the 13th. Breathe, love, and remember something very important that Daniel touched on. Do not disconnect yourself. These are my words from what Daniel said, of how I heard it. Do not disconnect yourself from yourself. Love yourself, honor yourself, trust yourself, and most importantly, believe in the decisions you are making, because it is going to pay off for you. Have a great night.